Raye just released her debut album, My 21st Century Blues, and I actually hadn't really heard a lot of Raye before this album. I mean, of course, I've heard Escapism, but I mean, I wasn't really into her music that much, and it really seemed like she was a lot more of a songwriter rather than an actual artist. But after listening to this album and listening to Escapism, especially, I think you can really tell that there's a lot of artistry going on with her, and she really deserves to have, to make her own music because this was really solid. I think this album is pretty great. She mixes a lot of different genres, including like UK kind of hip hop, R&B, and this dance pop to create a record that kind of works well throughout. The songs are pretty solid throughout, with some exceptional ones in the beginning of the album, and the whole thing kind of tackles some really important and powerful concepts, especially with like your self-worth and addiction and all that. And I thought it was really interesting like how she tackled it. Either way though, it was pretty solid, and let's just go track by track. Introduction, I love the piano and the welcoming voice. It kind of starts off the jazzy album that this is, and it's a nice transition into the next song because it perfectly goes into it. Oscar-winning Tears, love the production on this track with the piano, drum, and bass, and the whole song kind of complements Raye's beautiful vocals and builds up to her pre-chorus and then drops her in the chorus. The whole song kind of creates a sonic atmosphere that you hear every single one of the instruments on the song, and the atmosphere works perfectly with Raye's vocals as she hits the high notes and goes monotone with the more serious sections. Hard Out Here, I like the harder hitting production and Raye's flow on the first verse. The synths in the background also really interesting and work well on this song. Her flow and vocals complement herself as she sounds really good on each of her verses, and makes some amazing choruses. Black Mascara, I love the pulsating bass line and the layered vocals from Raye. The beat transitions into a simple house beat, which I feel like really works with the repetitive vocals and the build from the chorus to each of the verses. Escapism, I like the winding sound in the beginning with the hard-hitting bass. I really like Raye's flow and her inflection on certain vocals, and the chorus is pretty solid, but I think the TikTok part is a little bit more infectious and has that more of a catchy vibe. I mean, that's of course why it went, super viral on TikTok. Still is a really solid song. 070 Shake's inclusion on the song certainly works as it gives more atmosphere to the track as it kind of gets darker and her vocals just kind of surround the listener. I feel like this song kind of feels fresh throughout its entire runtime. It doesn't really sound too long at any point. Mary Jane, this is a really just amazing track. I love Raye's vocals on the track. They remind me of Amy Winehouse. I feel like that happens a little bit through this album. And the guitar with the percussion and electric guitar leading the melody sounds great. The production with the building drums and then the organ in the background also is amazing throughout the song. I think each of the verses being focused on a different substance also works well, and it really works for the theme of addiction on this song. The Thrill Is Gone, I love the quick moving beat and how Raye's vocals complement it. The move from the quick tempos to slowing the song to building it back up makes each chorus more rewarding, and while the chorus is cool, I think the slow tempo pre-chorus shows the best of Raye's vocals and sounds a bit better. Ice Cream Man, this one's a lot more stripped down, but it works a lot better for the important subject matter on the song, and I feel like the atmosphere of the production builds on the outro is amazing and sounds beautiful. This one is a lot more powerful and more important. I feel like the back half is more just important stuff, while the front half is like also important, but it's more about the addiction parts, which is, I don't know, it's really interesting. Ice Cream Man is a great song though. It really goes into how men have, abused their power, especially in the music industry, which is just a crazy thing and like should not happen at all. Flip a Switch, the song has a very similar sounding UK rap sample, and overall Raye has a pretty solid flow where he sounds good over the production. The song doesn't work as well in the sound of the album, but the atmosphere created by the heavy bass line still comes in at the end of the song. Then we go to Body Dysmorphia. I like the choppy flow from Raye as it works well with the stripped down beat. The song has more powerful lyrics about body dysmorphia and how she came to understand that her body is solely her own and how she has to love it. The outro is cool as well, and I think it works well in this song. Then we go to Environmental Anxiety. I love the quick moving production combined with the Raye's vocals, and the chorus is amazing with themes of an apocalypse combining with an upbeat tempo and production. Her flow on this verse is amazing as well, and she tackles a lot of topics within a really short time. She just goes bang, bang, bang. The end of the song has a disaster kind of happening, and I feel like the sirens throughout the song create a great atmosphere at the end. 5-Star Hotels, I like the slick production. I think the pre-chorus works well, but the chorus is really boring, doesn't really work well at all for me. Her flows and vocals are solid, but nothing special. I like Mahalia's part, but it doesn't really add much to the song. Like, it definitely is, cool, but it just is kind of thrown on at the end, and while it is better than Raye's part, in my opinion, it doesn't really do that much. Worth It, I like the old-timey feel of the lead-in in this song. I like the funk and soul of this song, and overall, Raye's vocals perfectly complement the bass line of the song, and her inflections sound great on the chorus. Raye's vocals layered in the background sound beautiful and add to the very solid vibey atmosphere that this song brings. Last but not least, we have Bust It Down. Love the piano, and I love how Raye uses her inflection to give this song a lot more soul. The lyrics are a little bit cringe because I feel like Bust It Down is such a like cringe and like, I don't know, Gen Z type thing where it's like, oh, bust it down. But I think it is interesting, and it works to talk about making love within like a kind of a veiled reference, even though you can tell what it is when actually listening to it. The layering of her vocals with her just regular voice and other voices and the spicing of the vocals sounds great on the chorus and works really well. Overall, I think this album is really good. She combines so many different things, and because her voice is like really good at hitting high notes and having these choruses with these super catchy lyrics, I feel like she really can just run her own song where she's the person singing the chorus. She's, putting in like a rap verse. And I feel like it's so interesting because there is so much versatility with her where she can do all these different things. And even with like going into the 070 Shakes thing where she can make this super cool electro pop and dance pop type sound, but she can also go into these things about all these different topics where she goes into body dysmorphia, environmental anxiety, and like just addiction throughout this entire album, and it shows how like versatile she is. But I feel like the whole album doesn't really, feel like just one thing on its own. It feels like, something you do as like a teenager where you're trying out a bunch of different things and they're all based on your life experiences, but they all sound a little different and they don't really fit together, but they do because they're connected by your story. That's kind of what this whole thing is. Like, it definitely is a solid album and there's just some amazing tracks on this, but it doesn't really fit together totally as an album, and it kind of does its own thing over its entire runtime. But I think the production on this sounds really slick, and just her going and getting super vulnerable with the audience really works and sounds amazing. So I think, if she just takes time to maybe focus on one of these genres, UK hip-hop, R&B, dance pop, I think it can really make a super cohesive album that is probably like a really amazing masterpiece. But I think with where she's going now, if she keeps up like this super genre bending thing, I don't know if it'll work that well because it just sounds so different song to song. But either way, there was so much potential on this album, and it was a very solid listening experience. I loved a lot of these songs. I thought, they really did their thing. So I think Raye, she put out a great album, and especially for someone that this is their debut album. I know she's been in the industry for a while, but this is her debut album, and there's just so much to improve on, and there's so much good stuff there already that if she just tightens it up a little bit, she could really make a masterpiece of an album. And she just has some really catchy tunes. Like Escapism is a super popular song, and it's for a reason because it's really catchy and it's just an overall great song in general. So I'm really hoping that Raye can expand on this, but either way, Raye 21st Century Blues gets a 7 out of 10. Very solid album. There's stuff to, make better, but overall great.